All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to ShoutCraft Kings. We've seen a couple of rapid-fire dethronings right here. Solar takes out Hurricane, who defeated the 10-win streak Innovation, and now everything is up in the air. Cats, dogs, upside down cats. Terrible.
It seems that when the long-reigning king was dethroned, we descended into anarchy.
Chaos.
And now madness reigns over the realm.
Riots in the streets. Indeed, we must restore order. Will Solar be able to do that? Well, it's only uphill from here for him, because he's going to be going up against some very, very strong opponents indeed. And it is perhaps time for the continent of Europe to really make itself known, I think.
Yeah, sounds good to me. See if they can bring some stability to this tournament so far. If we can get a bit of a reigning king there.
This anarchic kingdom, we will see what Europe's offering is against the current King Solar. A strong Terran indeed. Euthermal.
Oh, I love this. Euthermal is such a fun player to watch for all the wrong reasons. There's no way to know what's going to happen this game, and I'm not going to say it's because of Cyclones, but he's quite a cheeser sometimes too. He can play the long game. He can bust out a 3-Rax Reaper right here. There's absolutely no knowing what he's going to bring to the table against a Zerg player, and he's had some really strong series lately, most notably, I think immediately back to his great run at the Intel Extreme Masters Shanghai, where he took out
which he won the whole thing.
Series. Yeah. Off the back of some pretty good TVZ as well. So very interested to see what he's able to bust out here, and if he can dethrone the Korean king that we have established here in the form of Solar.
We will see, certainly, because there's some interesting stats and quotes from Euthermal that are going to give a bit of context to this match. But right now, who is inexplicably teamless to the northeast position in the Blue Trunks, playing Terran, the Netherlands Euthermal. The IEM Season 11 Shanghai champion versus his opponent to the northwest position. In the Yellow Trunks playing Zerg, Samsung Galaxy Solar.
Euthermal's had such an interesting year in that regard. He was pretty quiet for the most part. He's qualified for mostly everything. He is a very good Dutch Terran player, and that's something that we don't really get to say often. Outside of the obviously Dutch thing, but non-Korean Terran players having any level of success. He came into the Intel Extreme Masters Shanghai as a replacement player. I believe it was a Zerg who at the last minute had to cancel, couldn't go, couldn't compete. So they're like, okay, well, this was the next closest person in the qualifier. Shows up, wins the whole entire thing, beats players like Snoop, beats players like Neeb that are touted at the very tip top of the non-Korean Starcraft 2 scene, and he had a dream. And actually, the coolest thing about Euthermal is his dream is still alive to make it to the WCS Global Playoffs, be playing at the Copa International in Mexico City. If he finishes, I think it's second place or better, he will be making it to the top 8 in WCS circuit points. So the rest of this year is still very important to him, and that tournament is only 2 weeks away. So there's a lot on the line for Euthermal. He should be playing at the top of his game. He has so much to play for right now. I expect to see him play very strong today.
According to the site Ligalac, which is a stat tracking and ranking site for StarCraft 2, his current versus Zerg form is his all-time best with a 63.4% win ratio, which is, in StarCraft 2, that's pretty damn high. That's a very reliably high number.
Yeah. It's really interesting because I think of Euthermal as a very scrappy player. He's the kind of guy that can thrive in chaos. In fact, he and Neeb both credited his victory at Shanghai to the fact that he could. When the pressure was on, when they were on a big stage, Neeb himself said he just couldn't handle the pressure. It was madness all over Euthermal. He said he likes being able to force the game in that way. Yes, he likes being able to force these very tense situations where you're not 100% sure what's going on, and even he's not 100% sure what's going on, but he's okay with that. So I feel Solar played a little bit of that against Hurricane in the last map. So I think that makes this a very cool matchup. You have two players these are two of the least boring players you could watch in StarCraft 2. They both love non-stop aggression, counterattacks, harass, aggressive plays, all-ins. You get everything out of these two.
You absolutely do, no doubt about that. And if there were a tournament in which a chaotic player would thrive, it would have to be this one. I don't think there's any doubt. You don't know who you're going to be playing. You don't know how long you're going to be playing for. Every match is potentially your last one. You've got to play like an absolute maniac. And both of these players are more than capable of doing so. That Reaper simply does not want to die. It's being chased down by speedlings. He's continually making his way around. I think that Queen is finally going to pick him off. Maybe, just maybe. He's trying his best. He's juking like a madman. It's still alive, if you can believe that. I thought it was going to be a ling drop, but he's way too busy trying to clean this up.
It's the side effect of being a dirty Reaper cheeser, man. He's done so many of these like crazy Reaper builds. His Reaper control is just very good as a natural side effect to that. So he's able to keep a unit that otherwise normally dies pretty early on. So he's able to dance around and keep that alive. And we see the setup he's going for, you know, in case anybody has forgotten already, Innovation versus Solo from earlier today. It's the same build order for the most part. It's the same opening. Straight into this double medevac play. He's going to move across the map. Interested to see whether he goes for fast tanks. He is going to go straight into double engineering bay, which does strike me as curious since his third base hasn't even started yet.
Yeah, it's unusual to see tech go down that fast, especially without the resources to back it up. I'm intrigued to see what he's planning on doing with it. This Reaper is causing just all manner of havoc. It's finally been brought down, but it was able to distract his opponent for long enough to get that double drop into place. Now, Solar is forced to back off to defend against a 16 Marine push. He does have a lot of units to do it with, though, so I think he's going to have to get the hell out of there.
Very good defense setup there. And you can really see the difference when you look at a player like Solar. He does still have the worker advantage in this position, despite the fact that he had to build so many units to defend. You can really see just that resource management, not only, of course, of your money, but of your larva being played very well by Solar. And he's got a good, solid setup. His lair is delayed by this, though. That's the trade-off, to have workers and an army. So maybe he wants to build up to a really big Roachling Ravager attack. It remains to be seen. Your Thermal still has a lot of map presence because anti-air is extremely limited right now.
That is very true, and he's able to pick off an Overlord here, a Tumor there. I like how active on the map he is with these units. He does need to just be a little bit careful not to get caught out, but I think he's confident as long as he can keep the creep back that for the most part he'll be able to do that. Now, Euthermal has something of a chip on his shoulder, if you've noticed, when it comes to Koreans involved in the WCS. He made comments quite recently in a Team Liquid interview in regards to that. And another ShoutCraft Kings competitor and winner of the recent championship, True, claiming that, in fact, Euthermal had actually won a harder tournament quite recently in Shanghai than True had, and yet had earned less money, and that people had no chance to prepare for True since he was a last-minute addition and was not a regular player in the American scene. It seems like he wants to prove himself against a few Korean Zergs here. He's going to have the opportunity to do that and see whether or not he does indeed deserve all of
this harass.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking pretty good, you know. He's really just not letting up on Solar at all right here. Very aggressive play style. I like it. He's done a little bit of economic damage. He sacrificed basically nothing but Marines to do it as well.
Yeah, he's keeping the medevacs alive. That's always the thing that people, you know, you forget about very quickly. It's that those, you know, they are so important to keep them up for the energy to be able to heal these forces and keep everything going. And that's what I was saying about why I love watching Euthermal play, because he is so active on the map. He is constantly running around. He's constantly looking for opportunities. He's got these Liberators on the north side. His 2-2 is already on the way. His upgrades are looking great. Most important thing is he just got to set himself up on this third. Be careful against any possible drops. I think Solar had a drop Overlord on the production tab earlier, and keep the harass going.
Keep it up.
It's the hallmark of any good Terran players. They will always be in your face and not give you a moment's respite.
Yep, and he's continuing to do that, trying to contain the creep spread, trying to contain the expansion potential of the Zerg player, just keeping the Zerg player honest. The Liberators now being in play means that Solar's going to be even more careful about moving out. He is strongly reinforcing this army with a large number of Ravagers, however, he feels like he needs to put some pressure on. He does have the army to do it. It's almost like Solar's realizing that he's being held back unnecessarily, tied up with this harass.
And the Liberators were at the third base. The drops were in the natural. Now the drops are inside of the main base. The Liberators are still dancing around outside of the third. He's going to come in here and pick off this queen. Keep in mind, that's your anti-air for the most part. Now he can pick up in these medevacs whenever he wants. Like, okay, kill a few roaches, back off, pull away to the left side. Liberators are now on the natural expansion, and Euthermal is really getting a tremendous amount of harassment done. The most important thing he needs to do is just set himself up to defend against a possible counterattack.
Yeah,
because that supply is ballooning.
Solar's had enough of this. He's realized what's going on. Euthermal's probably playing with a castle made out of sand here. He's saying, hey, look, you just pay attention. Pay no attention to what's behind the curtain right here. Turns out, actually, Euthermal's defensive army is not that big, and this third base was only recently established here by Euthermal. This could be economically crippling if he loses it.
Yeah, this is such a rough spot to be in. Killing the Overseer is actually really important. If he can deny the high ground vision and get the tanks on the high ground, that can help a lot. He's already pulling the SCVs off the natural to try and just push this attack back.
I mean, he should have enough to push this back, assuming the tanks are able to stay alive. Now the Roach is diving on the quick pickup and go there by Euthermal, but the amount of SCVs he had to sacrifice to make that hold was massive. And with only 3 bases, Euthermal is not in a particularly great position to recover from that.
Yeah, that hurts a lot. You know, we talk about mules being a strong way to set yourself up, but in this scenario, the only thing that really works in Euthermal's favor is that he has the tanks still alive. He did not lose his tanks, but he doesn't really have enough, I think, to, you know, make a big counterattack right now. So it's still very scary for him, because Solar should be able to just drone up a little bit more, continue to get his upgrades. Only thing I'm going to say that I do really like for Euthermal is he's got his 2-2. His upgrades are on point. We only have 1-1 for Solar. That's going to have a big impact on these Marauders and Marines fighting against the Roaches.
Speaking of Roaches, Roach drop coming up to the top here, and a drop split off by Euthermal heading to the Zerg 4th base. There is nothing to defend against this. This could do quite some damage here.
Yeah, Euthermal really needs to strike back in a big way right here, right now. And as you said, he's going to be hitting this top base while the Roaches drop inside of his main. 3 of them, in fact, trying to get a little bit of work done here. A single Marauder is not going to be able to completely push that away.
Have to pull more back, yeah, and they were way out of position as well. They were up near the third. There's a couple of Marauders now. They'll be able to do the job. Quick evacuation there from the Overlord. Euthermal could have had an opportunity to maybe pick that off, shoot it down, but he's been focusing on the fact that, you know, Solar's starting to aggressively push out his creep there and really push this harassment back.
Yeah, and he does clean up the medevac inside of his main base. So Euthermal has his standing army that's out on the field. He's got a pretty respectable amount of army supply. I mean, if we really think about it, having an upgrade advantage versus Roaches, when Roaches are generally seen as supply inefficient, you know, they're not as strong per supply as some of the other units that Zerg has. So that deficit isn't the end of the world. It's just going to be difficult to overcome. He'll need to micro. Whenever the next big fight happens, it's possibly a game-ending fight if he takes too much damage.
Yeah, that is very, very true. I'm not keen on the economic situation of Euthermal at the moment. More SCVs are going to go down to this Roach harassment. Euthermal's actually up the top, but the bulk of Solar's army is heading in towards the third base. Relatively well set up with siege tanks. We're actually going to see a counterattack. Euthermal's going to try and defend with half of his army while he counterattacks here. And there's just too much Zerg for that to work.
Yeah. There's not enough here. There's no medevacs at home, which means, okay, you've killed this 4th base, the 3rd base maybe, but the Roaches are going to pop out in droves as those larvae pop. And I mean, he's just going to lose everything that he has on back home.
Yeah, and going for a base trade with that few units is, I mean, yeah, it's going to do damage. You might take out the outlying bases, but once Solar decides to just say, I've had enough of this and clean it up, well, that's going to be it. I mean, Solar's now camping the production. A huge amount of acidic bile just wiped out half of the bio on the ground there, and Euthermal's army is falling to pieces. Solar's shredding it, and there's just not enough on the other side of the map here for Euthermal, I don't think, to close this out.
Yeah, he's going to try to push in and try to continue this base trade of sorts, but the drones are being pulled off of the line to help just buy a little bit of soak here so that the Roaches can kill these Marines and Marauders. Drones ran across the map. They're killing the 3rd base missile turret. Yeah, there's not enough money to rebuild. So that's the one thing that's really weird about this, is if he could just float a building in the air and pick off the hatcheries, then maybe he can force a weird draw, but that does mean he needs to get some buildings in the air.
Yeah, and he needs to get some SCVs out of there as well. I mean, a lot of drones getting killed off here. Solar actually just threw most of his drones away, which I'm not sure if that was a particularly wise move. I mean, he still has an army supply advantage, but if this somehow goes wrong here for Solar, then he may have thrown away his only way to get back into the game. He's going to stim right in here. The Ravager shots do not connect. And actually, Thermal might have enough. The Marauders are doing the job. The Roaches are going to go down. The army supply now falling in favor of the Terran player. Did Solar just sign his own death warrant?
What?
He did! What? What?
The upgrade advantage. The
just
base
killed
trade.
himself.
Solar bled out so many of his forces trying to finish off Euthermal's main that while Euthermal killed all of his reinforcements, he just built up the ultimate army.
The hell just happened?
I cannot believe he was able to make that happen.
Was that hubris from Solar? I mean, you saw all of 30 plus drones run across the map. Instead of trying to mine or reestablish or anything else, he throws them across the map, has them kill a missile turret and work on that thing. It was almost like BM. It was like, I'm gonna throw my workers in your face because I've won. Hody dody do.
Yeah.
And he had a 40 army supply lead, but he loses all of those workers, so has no opportunity to get back into the game if something should go wrong. And then in the middle of morphing Ravagers, is attacked by a Marauder heavy force. He has to cancel the Ravager morphs, go back into Roaches. They get obliterated, cornered, they can't escape. And suddenly, out of nowhere, a 40 supply deficit turns into a victory for the Terran.
Ridiculous game. Ridiculous game. That plus, whoa. I think there's something to be said for having only the +2 attack and not the +2 armor on Solar's part, because you're fighting with all those Marines against those Roaches and those Ravagers. That's 2 extra damage for every single shot with all that stimmed bio. The focus on upgrades, because I pointed this out earlier in the game, he got the double engineering bay before his 3rd command center, which is highly unusual, but I feel like the upgrades really paid out with huge dividends in this game.
Yeah. I mean, because bear in mind how long he spent on Roach Ravager and the amount of damage that a Marauder Heavy Force can do with that upgrade lead over a Roach Ravager force. It's huge.
Wow. That's just such an interesting game to watch and to cast, to see something like that. And yeah, the Marauders absolutely demolished. Like, normally it's like, okay, yeah, and even upgrades, Marauders are good versus Roaches. They're the counter. But when you have an upgrade lead like that, it is brutal. I'm just watching that fight again. That was absolutely insane.
Oh, it was so perfectly timed as well. Just the right time, just the right position. You know, the Roaches and Ravagers were all bunched up, half of them in the process of morphing. He has to cancel out of that. It's like, what? Whoa, hang on. You weren't supposed to have a big enough army to be able to beat me. You know, he could have maybe positioned himself on the high ground to allow him to shell the Marauders as they came in, get an advantage that way. But he didn't. He basically had all the advantages in the world and didn't use any of them. Like, and when it came to throwing those drones away for basically no reason, you know, you could have just long-distance mined and built some more units, but I think he felt he'd won at that point. It's like, I'm done, this is done, get me on to the next game. No, actually, you cheeky bastard. As it turns out, maybe not. Hubris, the fall of many a king.
Wow, such a crazy way for that game to end, and we have yet another dethroned king. The Game of Thrones continues to see who will be able to park themselves here for more than a single map. Or a single map win, I guess I should say.
Indeed. Now, you remember earlier I was talking about the interview with Euthermal on Team Liquid and his comments about WCS and all that sort of thing. Got a bit of a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, such a point of contention this whole entire year, right? People talking about, you know, who does the system favor? Is this even the system that was, you know, discussed and planned for the year? As far as the events go and people moving and getting visas and all that jazz, it's probably been the most controversial StarCraft topic all year, I'd say.
Yeah, no real doubt about that. Well, me being the manipulative commissioner that I am, there was one player who Euthermal really called out in that interview and didn't so much speak harshly about, but certainly claimed that had an easier time of it lately. And I'd like to settle this once and for all now that we have the opportunity. Euthermal claimed he won a harder tournament than this man. Let's find out who the better champion is, because his opponent's going to be True.
Oh my goodness. Well, this gives us... I think about True, and he played a very scary tournament. I mean, he made Pult look like a scrub in that grand final at Montreal. It was disgusting. He plays such a brutal style. Like, True does not play normal ZVT. He didn't play normal StarCraft at all. He's just all over you. Lings, Banelings, drops, mass Ling. Forget tech. He just kills you with Ling Baneling. It's like watching, you know, the old sparks of like life. Just there's constantly going to be Lings everywhere. You will not have a chance to breathe. And against someone like Euthermal, I find this to be an extremely weird matchup because Euthermal was trying to bring the aggression nonstop. If he's open to any counterattack opportunities, True is going to expose them.
Absolutely. We're going to see the 2016 WCS Circuit Summer Champion take on the player that claimed he, in fact, had won a harder tournament. Can he prove his point right here? We're going to find out. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to King Sejong Station. To the northwest position, our current king in the Blue Trunks playing Terran. He is the IEM Shanghai champion. He is Euthermal. Versus his opponent to the southeast position from Psystorm Gaming in the Red Trunks. He is the 2016 WCS Circuit Summer Champion. In the Red Trunks playing Zerg, it's True.
Oh, what an awesome match to have. I like that we get to do this here, man. This is, I think, one of the things that makes this tournament format so interesting.
Indeed.
With your godlike powers of picking who
What
comes
is the point in
and...
having power if you can't abuse it for your own maniacal ends?
Amen, John.
I have up the interview right now, and he gives True's win as an example of what he believes is broken about the WCS system. The quote, True won a single elimination tournament beating 2 players who were top 8 in WCS points. I won a single elimination tournament beating 4 players who were in the top 8. His format wasn't harder, it wasn't a harder tournament, but he just happened to get more points and more money. I think I won the harder tournament than True did, but he just got lucky and won the right one.
That still seems weird to me because you go into like you could say that somebody who wins like an Oli Moly has a more difficult run, right? And you're obviously not playing for $150,000, you know.
Absolutely.
So it seems just like a weird thing to bring up because there's plenty of tournaments that are harder that happen all the time than foreign tournaments, right?
Well, yeah, you know, every GSL ever, anything involving quite a lot of Koreans ever, and so on and so forth. But I think it reflects sort of a fairly deep-running feeling, especially amongst foreigners over the past few years, that the potential growth of their scene has been stifled by Koreans coming in and taking all the money, you know? And there are plenty of foreigners who believe that they can't get better if that's all that keeps happening. Someone comes in at the last minute, you know, True again, a fairly last-minute addition to that championship that hasn't really been contributing to that regional scene in too much of a way, and yet then comes and runs away with the prize money. There are plenty of foreign players who are very much resentful over that. Now, whether or not that's the correct way to look at it is a different matter, but you can't deny that's how they feel.
Yeah, I mean, there is a little bit of merit to it when you consider the results against the Koreans that they've been playing against in tournaments. Like, naturally, you get to play on a stage against Pult and Hydra enough, you figure those guys out. So,
you do, yeah.
I mean, it makes sense that in True's first big stage appearance, obviously no one has experience playing against him when there's that much on the line, right? So you can't truly have an understanding of what's going to happen. And so I can kind of see from that perspective, but, you know, I looked into it as well because I was also curious. But True actually played quite a bit of online tournaments in the foreign scene during this whole year. He's played a tremendous amount of ladder games, so the opportunity to play against him has been there. Not in tournaments, you know, live tournaments to the same degree as someone like Hydra or Pult, 2 players that, honestly, the more they've played outside Korea, the worse they've gotten. So it's pretty much just a case of people being like, well, True is he's a more fresh Korean. He hasn't hit his expiration date yet.
Yeah, I mean, there's this opinion, of course, that, you know, once you move outside of the Korean ecosystem, that you will get weaker. One has to wonder, though, how much of it is really that, and how much of it is simply the fact that you do get to know Polt and Violet a little bit more because they play on North American Ladder. So it's not this unknown quantity of an incredibly skilled mystery player just popping out of nowhere and then ruining your day. You know how they play, so you can prepare in that regard. You know, so I think there's maybe a little bit of truth to it. You know, there's no doubt that the North American ladder is weaker than the Korean ladder, and as a result is a weaker practice environment, but it's about playing against the known and playing against a known quantity, especially a very famous one who's played hundreds, thousands of televised games for you to analyze, versus some guy who's just really, really, really good and is fresh out of a Korean practice house and just got his US visa.
Yeah. I think a lot of it just comes down to True's form. Being so recently, you know, competing in pretty much top of the top. Very good performance in GSL right before he came out here, which also lends pretty heavily to it. But I guess I can see where a bit of that resentment may come in just because you don't have as much land practice opportunity against these guys. Either way, Euthermal has opened up with actually the same exact build as the last game. This very quick double engineering bay off 2 bases with the stim. Yeah, I do like it a lot because it's just like you take what works, the 2-1-1, and you kind of put your own twist on it, which is the upgrades. And normally, that is something you don't have, but it will allow you to destroy a Zerg player that doesn't focus on that. And I like this because True is also someone that goes for very fast upgrades. And we can see he doesn't have a lair. His 1-1 is on the way. He hasn't even started a lair. And he's just building Zerglings. He doesn't even have a Baneling nest yet. I can already tell you, his plan to defend this attack that's going to come is literally just with Ling Queen. Look, he's already up to 8 queens. He has another one on the way. This is how True plays. The queens are going to focus the medevac, and the Lings are going to dive on top of the Marines.
Yeah, which makes me a little bit worried for Euthermal. A really early armory coming up here, so he can immediately go into the 2-2. With this many Lings and that kind of queen coverage, the amount of harassment he was able to put up against Solar doesn't seem like it's going to work this time. You know, True seems like he's way better prepared, and if these units get caught out of position and killed, like, there's such counterattack potential. I mean, he's got Ling's Bane, and they're going to have heavy upgrades as well. At that point, he's just like, oh, you lost a bunch of units? Okay, I'm just going to counterattack with Lings and Banelings and kill you then.
Yeah. So this time around, instead of going for the 2 medevac play, he does wait up for the 3rd. So he has a few more Marines than the last time, but there's still just so many Lings and Queens. And what True is basically saying is he's like, all right, come here, focus on my Queens, on my Lings, kill your Marines, and I have enough transfuses to probably pick off most of your army before you actually kill anything that matters. So yeah, I think it's smart for you, Thermal, to just back off and focus on killing the creep tumors.
That is true. There are a couple of disadvantages to what True is doing, though, and the key one being that he is far behind on technology. He continues to invest gas into things like Banelings, as opposed to really taking up into heavier units, starting a Spire or anything along those lines. Thing is, Euthermal's kind of doing the same thing, because he's investing so much into upgrades and building a ton of Marines and trying to get his medevac count up as well. I mean, that's literally all he has right now, medevacs and Marines. That's it.
The most important thing right now is that Euthermal does not take an engagement where the Queens are there, because the Queens are going to focus the medevacs, and as soon as the medevacs die, all of those Marines are dead. We have a ton of Lings on the map, Banelings, and you said it, he's only investing in Ling Bane. This is True. This is exactly how he played versus Hero Marine. This is exactly how he played versus Polt at DreamHack Montreal. And now with the Lings running out to the side, he's basically saying, hey man, if you want to be out on the map like this, that's fine. I will abuse that position. So maybe he can deny the 4th base, but he still needs to be extremely careful because his 3rd is about to get ravaged.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's going to have to lift up and get the hell out of there. You know, maybe he loses 8 workers and he can hopefully lift up and get out of there. If there's a decent trade there from Euthermal, I mean, as he said, cancelling the 4th is good, and he also gets rid of a bunch of creep there, which is also effective. But now the Lings are just like, you know what, I have all the Lings. I'm just going to try and beat down your wall, because I think maybe I've got enough to do that. Unfortunately, he does not. Those Marines were expertly positioned with the medevacs, ensuring they're basically immortal at that point.
I do like how Euthermal has responded to this, though. I mean, the 3rd base pushed back for sure, but he denies the Zerg 4th, and now he's actually going to be flying into the main. There's nothing here to defend against this. He could cancel the Spire. What little tech True has been looking at could be denied right here, and he does. He gets the cancel on it.
I mean, he's going to get this pool as well if he's quick, but he's not. Oh, a huge number of Banelings come in, but he's able to get out. Oh, wow. Look at the precision use of the Marines to soak up as many Banelings as possible. You might think, did he just throw away his army? Yes, but he traded Marines
He killed
for a ton of Banelings.
He
That's
killed a
absolutely
lot.
worth it.
That is a lot of Banelings. That's actually all the Banelings he had. Only 2 remain after that, which means this next Marine push, I will say, you know, playing the numbers game against True is very scary. I mean, his 3rd command center actually almost got killed during all of that, so it's still very scary for him. But his 2-2 is finishing up, and that's a small window here where he could fight against this army and actually get a pretty good trade again.
Yeah, he absolutely could, especially with Widow Mines in the mix. You know, it's a large Ling army, another wave of Banelings coming in there. But again, the Widow Mine presence is making this style tricky. I have to wonder if he sacrificed too many units there. I don't know. It's questionable. You know, they're both playing on a knife edge at the moment.
I think keeping 1 medevac worth of units back there would have been nice, because now True's had the last like minute or 2 of this game to just rebuild everything, and he's got a big Ling counterattack going in. His +2 upgrades are done. The one difference between this and most other Terrans that True plays is that Euthermal is on even upgrades with him. He's going to come out here and fight against these Lings. Widowmine's doing a great job, actually, really helping to solidify this defense.
Yeah. He's able to hold that without too much of a problem. Now, again, threatening pressure on the main, keeping True's army back. However, there is a problem, and that's in the form of Mutalisks that are on the way, and that's going to start to change the game. It's going to make harassment an awful lot more difficult. This is kind of the time where I would like to see some tech from the Terran player. We have 1 Liberator. That's about it so far.
Yeah, more Widow Mines, definitely more Liberators in this situation would help a lot. That Widow Mine is going to get maybe a few of these Banes. Decent shot so far, but the Queen just push right up.
Yeah,
they
why
deal
not?
with the Liberator in quick fashion. Then there's still that drop inside of the main base that will get cleaned up. And now the mutas are out, like you were talking about earlier.
Exactly. This makes this much more difficult, and these medevacs are now very vulnerable to being killed. Some damage being done by this drop, but with all these medevacs going down, that's very concerning for Euthermal. Yeah, a lot of the Banes were killed. Yes, he does. The problem is he's using his Starport to build a Liberator now and not more medevacs.
Yep, that's always the tricky part when you're playing against this. It's one of the... I'm not a big fan of Thors myself, but it's one of the scenarios where getting a Thor so that you can keep building medevacs can be worth it. But obviously, he's still building Widow Mines. He doesn't have a tech hub on his factory, so the commitment is going to stay there.
Yeah, unfortunate little bit of micro there from Euthermal. He actually pops out quite nicely in order to prevent his Widow Mine from detonating, but then the one behind it just goes and detonates, so it sort of defeats the point of the exercise, unfortunately, there. Oh, here we go. More threats coming in. Yeah, that base has a decent amount of missile turrets, so harassment, not really something that can happen with those Mutalisks, but there's a side flank being set up here by True with a large number of speed banelings. There's that 1 Widow Mine that could throw a spanner in the works.
Now this is really crazy, right? He's got the drop on the right side, he's got some units in the middle, but the mutas are headed towards the west side. I mean, denying mineral mining here is big. Gets a few drones, he's denying a few patches, might even get a few of these Mutalisks.
Gets a muta for free, sure.
Yeah.
No reason to complain about that. In the meantime, another stimmed pack of Marines heads down the center, looking to clean out creep. I mean, he's done a great job of holding the creep back, I've got to say, you know, exceptional job of that. And against a Ling Bane heavy style, that can be absolutely crucial. He's going to end up losing this force, but I think he's done a decent amount of damage with it in the process, so it's not too terrible. The Widow Mine, unfortunately, does not kill all the Banelings, which would be the dream there. But it does spot the Banelings coming in, so that third base is now not so vulnerable to a run-by.
And Euthermal's harass is all being cleaned up now. He's lost it all. He's just got that medevac that's been killed, and now it's just a few Marines back home. And I think we're seeing this is where True is just so good. He doesn't play around with those weak roaches, man. He's got 16 mutas, 120 lings.
Oh, big
nice
shot
mine
with a
shot.
Mine. Excellent mine shot. That's definitely changed the complexion of that engagement. He doesn't need to be worried too much now about that flank from the right, and that allows him to hopefully secure that 4th base, but he does need to deal with that pack of Mutalisks that are going to be a real problem for him here. Oh, but in come the Liberators. A great salvo of shots go off there. And with enough Liberators, of course, the Mutalisk count will not really be too much of a factor anymore.
But Liberators are just ridiculously strong against Mutalisks. I mean, that's why we see in the test patch they've even removed the plus light damage Liberators are just ridiculously powerful. They shut down mutas super hard. They're the most important unit against them, I would say. Now, these Widow Mines need to get a lot of damage done on the Ling Bane. Great shots there. He still has most of his Marines intact. That is extremely important, as I think Widow Mines are what's going to win this game for you, Thermal, if he wants to have a chance at it.
Yeah, I think that is very true, although, of course, if they keep killing his own units, then that very well might not happen. The Liberator count is no longer large enough to deal with those Marines, and I think True knows it. He smells a little bit of blood in the water. He's starting to overwhelm that fourth base from all sides, and the army of the Terran player is gone. GG. True makes a point. Dethrones you, Thermal, and are we ever going to see a streak again? I have to wonder at this point.
It's the new king every single game.
Indeed. It's a very unstable moniker we have here.
Yeah. there are some flashes of brilliance there in terms of how the approach is taken to True's style. And I think something that could have helped a lot there, because definitely the Widow Mines were key. But your Thermal's harass was great, but True just bases his style around just having an absurd amount of units. It's like, oh, you want to do a double medevac drop? That's fine. I've got enough Lings to kill it instantly while I'm already spamming out drones behind it. So I like True's style a lot because it really abuses the current Terran meta, where you just move everything out on the map and you attack. Like, he commits a little bit more to shut you down, but then at the same time, he's always looking for the counterattacks because you're always on the other side of the map. But that's just really, you know, that Korean killer instinct of finding these, you know, these jugulars to jump on with his Lings, and it's been awesome to watch. Thermal had a cool way to approach it, but it was not enough.
It was not.
Maybe another factory earlier. Like, I think if he had gone like what Polt used to do in Heart of the Swarm, where he goes like 3 factory reactored Widow Mine after he gets drilling claws, like then you just have so many mines, it's not really possible to just bait them out with a few Lings.
Yeah, you're totally right there. And it was interesting to see just the difference in style between Solar and True, because you saw the sheer abuse of harassment for like 10 plus minutes from the Terran player in the game against Solar, and that just wasn't allowed to happen in the game against True. There were just so many units on the ground.
That's like, it's just the way that he does it so well, because what True will do is he'll just put you under the impression that you have enough to deal with his force and be like, okay, well, suddenly, because True, like, we talk about the weaknesses of True's style, right? Against Terran, at least. And I think this kind of rings a little bit true, no pun intended, for his other matchups as well, which is that he will play with really good upgrades and a lot of units with almost no tech. Like, those mutas, for all intents and purposes, came out extremely late relative to any other Zerg player that, you know, goes for tech against Terran, which is, by the way, all of them. So,
yes, yeah.
Like, it's just an interesting dynamic that he plays around the fact that you're kind of expecting to have units because you assume the Zerg is investing into tech, but he's just not. So it's like, how did he afford those extra Lings? How does he have an extra 2 Queens? I don't understand how he has so many units. Well, it's because he just didn't get a lair. He waited a long time to get that. He went for 1-1, and then that was it. So
tech's not high priority when it comes to True, it seems. And really, if you can make those advantages last, then yeah, you can delay your tech. It's when you don't get those early game victories that you can really fall behind. It's when you put a lot into a big attack and it doesn't pay off, and then you realize, oh god, alright, well I'm now 2 minutes behind my opponent, I've got to play catch up, and all the while my opponent's doing whatever he wants.
That's what makes it so difficult. It's hard to know sometimes. You obviously, you know, your focus is always going to be on your macro, you're jumping mules, you're bolstering your forces, and it was cool. It was a cool style to see that fast of a double eBay, which has its own risks, right? If a Zerg player attacks you in any way and you take damage, then you're extremely far behind because you don't have the 3rd command center. But opening with 2 barracks seems to be enough to compensate for that, so
indeed.
Curious to see what happens next.
I want to take a quick break, and then we'll find out exactly what happens next. You are watching ShoutCraft Kings, folks. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to ShoutCraft Kings. Our current king is, of course, True. We've had quite the exchange of the crown over the last few matches. No one able to stick around for more than one. Is it going to change? Looking at the challenger, I'm not so sure. Guess we are about to find out, because I have quite the challenger for Mr. True right here. This is a guy I've been looking forward to seeing in this tournament for a long, long time indeed. He's, of course, a fan favorite. He's been around forever and remains relevant. He is the Boss Toss MC.
You really don't want anyone to hold that crown for more than one game, huh?
I mean, no. I think we're just gonna... I just want to give everybody $250 today, and this is just... off you go.
Fair enough. Do you have, like, hand sanitizer? Or, you know, crown sanitizer? If everyone just keeps passing that thing around?
We've got the spray. Kind of does the job, really. Give it a little bit of a polish, and then just spray with the antibacterial. It's fine. The Koreans are very clean anyway, so not really a big deal. The question is, can MC dethrone True? I mean, I think the answer in most people's minds would be, well, yeah, of course he can. He's MC, he can dethrone anybody.
Yeah, I guess the best part to see is what has MC been up to as far as StarCraft goes. Is he going to bust out something that's very standard that we see a lot? Or is it going to be something a little bit, you know, boss tossy? Is it going to be something that maybe we're not quite expecting, something that's a little bit different? And that's kind of always been a bit of the appeal to, you know, to his charm, as it were. It kind of makes games very interesting in his own unique way.
He really does. There's no real doubt about that. He has, of course, been playing very recently. It's amazing to me how relevant MC actually remains. You know, one of the originals, and people that stay around for that long usually have a bit of a fall-off. Not him, no. I mean, in July, he played 4 Pro League matches and won 3 of them. He beat Curious, Alive, and Super.
That's pretty good. It's pretty good. Oh my goodness, already on this map. True taking that really fast gold base.
Alright, better get the player introductions done then, because action's already going to go down here to the northwest position. Our current King of the Hill in the Blue Trunks playing Terran, Psystorm's True. Versus his opponent. Oh yes, indeed. It is the Boss Toss himself. A legend in his own mind and a legend in his own right. He's certainly earned it. To the southeast position for CJ Entus in the Red Trunks playing Protoss, MC.
Fan favorite, if ever there was one in StarCraft 2. Been around forever. He's toured the world, won tournaments everywhere. He has his legacy, he has his championships, his memes, everything you could possibly want as a pro StarCraft player. MC's pretty much done it. He has been everywhere. Pylon at this gold base, I guess he's trying to threaten the possibility of some sort of cannon play to deny this gold, but I'd be pretty surprised if he was actually able to make something of it.
I mean, he has the forge up. He's gonna just place him down anyway, and then he mineral walks away. I mean, you've got to commit something to stop that. You can't just let that go up. There's a third cannon going down. MC is, I mean, if it's a fake out, it's a hell of a committed fake out. You know, one of those cannons is going up. There's no doubt.
He's not expanding, though, is what this does. You know, all his resources are being committed into this, so he's really... He really needs to do tremendous damage. I mean, these slow lings are going to come up, but I don't think any of these cannons are going to end up finishing, so...
I don't think so. Now that the lings came out, yeah, they're not going to end up finishing. They got cancelled, so the investment is not massive, but it's like you said, he didn't expand. Like, he's only just started his Nexus right now, so he's behind the Zerg who already has a hatchery. So I have to wonder just... I mean, that doesn't really do anything, does it? He's forced 14 lings out of his opponent. So he slowed him down a little bit, but did he slow him down enough? I mean,
I think about it this way: the lings shouldn't be able to do much for him now because
no, they can't. The wall.
He has the wall, so it's like okay, maybe he was going to build more drones if that hadn't happened like that, but even so, he delays his own economy, and then we just consider okay, well, MC's taking his natural, but True has the gold, which his drones are just more efficient. His drones are just mining more efficiently. If you look at the income tab, I mean, it's plain as day. Getting this base this early on has a distinct advantage, especially when your opponent commits to something like a cannon rush that fails like that.
Yeah, I would have been maybe a little bit more okay with that if it was just a little bit of a fake out. It's like, hey, I'm going to build like 1 or maybe a second pylon, but no. He tried to build 3, nothing happened, and here's the problem with this setup, you know. If this was Wings of Liberty, for instance, this wall off would be pretty damn difficult to break. Here's the problem. You can drop Lings now into bases, and unfortunately, that's exactly what's going to happen. It's a very slow Overlord doing it, but look at the elevation. He's actually bringing 10 or 11 Lings into the main base, and that goes completely unspotted right now, and then it's making its way into the mineral line.
MC has 2 Adepts kind of waiting, preempting this a little bit inside of his main. The Lings can still focus on the probes, which is pretty important still. That Zealot and that Adept going to pick off a few of these. So I will say this certainly could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
Just imagine that MC has all of the Adepts out front. And I actually think it's so smart because if you are MC, you're like, well, I built a Zealot, so I'm covering the wall.
Yeah,
so
why
like,
do you need all the Adepts out there? What's he going to attack?
Exactly. Like, what could my opponent do that would hurt me? Well, I mean, if you drop Lings in my base, it's like, well, okay, maybe you don't know if that's going to happen, but now you can at least say, well, it's better than keeping the Adepts on my wall where they wouldn't do anything anyway.
Yeah, True sort of taking the piss a little bit there, trying to micro with Lings being dropped from this Overlord. Doesn't really work out so well, but here's the thing. In doing that, True scouted the Stargate, which is key information, and that should certainly help him out, since there's a Void Ray on the way, and this Oracle is already out.
Yep, now there's 3 queens at the gold base, so I think this could end up working very well in True's favor if that Oracle does poke in.
It's not good.
Imagine if he had skirted around to the side. There's nothing in the natural. There's not much in the main. He's going to fight these Lings with the Adepts and the Oracle. Of course, Oracle very strong against the Zerglings, so he's trying to get something done there. Maybe he wants to move the Adepts and Oracle in at the same time, but True, he's just constantly putting this pressure on. Now we have a Protoss player who's having an exceptionally hard time getting a 3rd base, which is so important in this matchup.
Yeah, it's especially important considering the Zerg got the gold so early. You know, it's like 3.5 bases there for the Zerg player versus 2 for the Protoss, who was unable to expand. That said, you know, if this was, especially if this was Wings of Liberty, I'd say, oh, you're forcing MC to 2-base you. That doesn't sound like a very good idea. He's going to kill you now.
This isn't a 2-base expansion. That makes it a little bit more difficult. MC will take the 3rd. And this is how you got to play the game nowadays. You know, it's funny to think about that because that was one of MC's legends. Definitely
yeah,
not
2-base all in all day every day. Yeah, it's like don't stop him from getting a 3rd. That actually, you know, that increases his win ratio if you do that.
The +1 melee is going to finish soon. That's exceptionally important. When we talk about upgrades in Protoss against Zerg, usually the only upgrades Protoss gets are attack upgrades, which means that Lings becomes exceptionally powerful when they're fighting head-to-head against Adepts or Zealots, or, well, I mean, honestly, anything. So that's one thing we're going to have to keep in mind is those upgrades are going to scale very well for Lings to pick units off, including probes, and it's something that could have a big impact in this game moving forward.
We're seeing a large army here. I mean, the gateway explosion has happened. You know, the more gateways are going down for the Protoss player, but they're not up yet. And honestly, posturing-wise, True is posturing to attack already with a large army supply advantage. Although I will say it's a lot of Lings versus a lot of upgraded Adepts, which, you know, generally doesn't go down all that well.
And the Oracle's still been sharking around, but I mean, True's getting his 4th, he's getting his 5th. You have another Zergling drop heading into the main base, we can see right now. And of course, those Lings, we talk about that +1, are going to be an extremely volatile threat. And at the same time, Lingbane at the 3rd. Great Baneling connections on the Adepts. And now he's got another attack headed towards the natural. He's hitting all 3 bases at once.
I think MC was distracted there by the drop in the main because those Adepts should not have eaten that Baneling hit. That absolutely should not have happened. The whole force just got wiped out. More Warpins are coming in, and the Lings are now busting through the natural. This has been absolutely devastating for MC. I mean, this could be a loss right here. Everything has gone wrong for him.
True, playing a great game here. He's got Lings in the main, Lings in the natural, Lings in the 3rd. What do you really do in this position? Okay, he gets to overcharge inside of the natural expansion, but the gold base still been cleaned out. The Lings going into the main. Could even try to retreat into that Overlord as these Adepts finish up, but more and more Zerglings on the way. That +1 attack still never actually finished. The Forge has been halted.
This is whitewash. It really, the amount of damage that's being done is ridiculous. You know, even if he does drive this back. What did he commit to this? Lings and Banelings, and now he has 5 hatcheries. You know, it's like...
Look at this. He starts a Nidus network, so he's just basically getting ready for the finishing blow.
GG.
MC
he doesn't
taps
need
out.
it. Yeah, that was a surprisingly one-sided match, honestly. from someone who, like, lately has been playing really, really well. It's not like MC is retiring, you know, he's back in the field and he's playing Pro League and winning most of it, and yet True just wiped the floor with him.
True is a very scary player. I think for this format, True is so strong because he just plays such an aggressive way in so many different ways. You have to just prepare in such a weird like mythology that he can abuse you. He's like, okay, well, yeah, okay, if you're just gonna play super turtley, that's fine. And then obviously it comes down to you go for a cannon rush that doesn't do anything. That's not gonna help you.
Yeah, that was a weird move, honestly. It almost seemed like, oh, he's faking it. Okay, cool. It's like, no, actually, he just committed. Instead of starting his Nexus behind what looked like a little bit of a fake, he actually commits 3 cannons to it, and it delays his Nexus so much that by the time he's able to get anything going, the Zerg player already has just so many units. And it wasn't even just that. It was down to something as simple as not moving your adepts away from a bunch of banelings and having them all die.
Yeah, we talk about things that are super impressive that Protoss players do. I immediately think back to Neeb, who had probably some of the best splits with his adepts versus banelings in his matches against Hydra that he played in a recent Delicias tournament. And it's a tough thing to be able to do, but you know that's part of what True's madness is he distracts you, and then you can't make the correct call. You can't do everything at once because he's hitting you in 3 bases at the same exact time.
Yeah, his multi-pronged attacks and harassment were excellent. It was surprising to see a player with the experience of MC be that distracted. But I guess, you know, maybe a slightly older player, you can test their multitasking, you can test their speed, and it may very well not be up to par.
It's just another one of those things that shows the skill of True, and he's just bringing it out here for ShoutCraft, and it's awesome to see. It's scary to witness because it makes you think about all the dirty things that Zerg players can do to you if they could play like this. It just doesn't feel safe to leave your base.
No, it really does not, because if you do, he's going to be in there with all manner of things. You know, it was brutal to watch, no doubt about it, but I think it should hopefully start to cement in the minds of people that True is certainly a champion for a reason. He was not able to overcome innovation in July's ShoutCraft Kings, but right now he's starting to establish a little bit of a run. He's got some momentum going. You know, we've got through a couple of one-map Kings, and now we have someone who's on a roll. The question is, who will be able to dethrone him, and how long is it going to take? Because you tend to notice once these players get on a run, they get a little bit more comfortable, they get warmed up, and they actually do have an advantage going forward.
So interested to see, then, who is going to be able to stop this man? And honestly, True does strike me now as being the player that could actually get a bit of a streak going.
He could, yeah, he totally could.
He's certainly warmed up. He's shown his style, though, and I do think that as good as his style is, we haven't seen him play slow enough. I feel like we need someone that can, like, wrangle him in, you know? Like, he's just kind of all over the place, but there's got to be someone that has a solid enough of a base, you know, that he can just play very straight up and handle it. But that player...
You'd need someone who was definitely fast enough to manage that as well.
Yeah,
speed is crucial in this kind of situation.
It's interesting to think about it in that context, where it's like you need someone fast, not to be faster than him, but just enough to slow True down to his level without it, you know, being something ridiculous, right? Obviously, not bringing back Goody here to try and slow it down that much. That's a little bit too much.
We don't need a 2-hour game. I don't think. It's like,
No.
slow him down. All right, let's break out some Fire Cake, old Heart of the Swarm era Fire Cake.
We're actually going to play on the Heart of the Swarm patch. We're just going to put it on the old balance test mod from when the Swarm host still had all of their old
I just love the fact
abilities.
that Fire Cake is pretty much the sole reason why that unit got completely destroyed in balancing and has never been used since. I just find that amusing.
Stefano contributed a lot.
Yeah, he actually did. Yeah, late stage Stefano
forget.
Games, were not that fun to watch.
What was it? It was like Stefano versus Petraeus, I think, at like Lone Star Clash. They just had like 3-hour-long games. The people running the tournament were like in full crisis mode. Like the venue's gonna shut down the power. We're not even halfway done.
We don't know what to do. Yeah, there was also there's one game that I cast with Day 9 that had some equally ridiculous nonsense going on with it. and it was a Protoss versus Zerg. I can't for the life of me remember what it was. I think my brain has just purposely tried to get rid of it, just eject it from my memory so I never have to suffer it again.
Yeah. I think everybody wants to eject that from their memory.
Most
certainly,
people do, yeah.
But certainly the games I cast of it and the ones that I had to play against the few Zergs that did it versus Terran, it is nightmarish to say the least. It's kind of like the old turtle mech builds as well. Can't say I was ever a fan of dragging games out with point defense drones that lasted
forever. Yes.
Auto turrets that lasted for 3 minutes with upgrades. Pretty ridiculous.
And as if there's an upgrade to make it last even longer. It's like, yeah, 2 minutes isn't enough. We need more. Like, no.
It needs to be 3 minutes, guys. That's
free.
The secret.
These are free units. No. Stop that.
Certainly made my life a lot easier. All the people that play Mass Raven and stuff are those styles have fallen off pretty significantly, and so have those people's ranks.
Indeed, and we can all be forever thankful for that. Makes StarCraft just a generally more interesting game. We're currently waiting on our next player. He should be here momentarily. I do have someone who not only has faced this player quite a lot, but has faced pretty much everybody a lot. Someone very experienced who should be able to put up a good fight here. I just don't want to announce him and then figure out that he's not actually there. That's like, oh, he's not turning up. That would be embarrassing.
That's too suspenseful.
Yeah, it's like, and it will be later. Later on, it will be that. But all right, cool. He's joining now. All right, we have found someone who we think is capable of knocking True off the throne. If there is someone with more experience in online events, I don't know who that person would be. This person has dominated the online scene for over a year. He is Bjorn.
Okay. So this could be it then. This is what I was hoping that we would see, somebody like this. You just said it, of course. Whatever setup he has at home must be the most comfortable one ever, because all he does is destroy online tournaments pretty much non-stop. So don't really know what to expect in that regard, but I'm hoping that we can see him handle the madness of everything that True has been throwing around. Hopefully he's seen enough of True's game, played against him enough that he can say to himself, well, I kind of have some idea of how to deal with this, but I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. If it's ZVT, we're going to see True build a lot of Zerglings and a good amount of Banelings. He's going to go for late mutas, and I mean, in this game, depending on what the map is, it could also just be something as simple as a very quick Baneling bust. You know, that's not outside the realm of what he does. That's very similar to how he played against Hero Marine when he played on King Sejong Station at DreamHack. He's an extremely, I like to describe True's style. He's like a bully, you know? He does not stop. He will find your weak point and he will just harass you and harass you and harass you until you just don't want to play StarCraft anymore and just go cry to your parents. It's not fun. He's extremely scary to play against.
Pretty much how it works. Now, interestingly enough, these guys have met very recently. As recently as a week ago in a tournament called Shangangling 3. And Bjorn, he actually lost 2-0 to True in that particular tournament. That said, they played a month before in the ESL Americas Open Cup, because of course they did. It's Bjorn, he plays every online event ever. And Bjorn actually took a 2-0 against True.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect. I will say that being New Gettysburg, really good map for all the area on the upper side. It's kind of difficult to block off where that third is from harass, especially fourth bases. So most Terran players I talk to, they're vetoes. Obviously with the format, it's not much of a thing here, but you know, in a tournament where you can veto, a lot of Terrans, they don't want to play Apotheosis versus Zerg, and they don't want to play New Gettysburg. New Gettysburg, absolutely not. So I mean, we had a great game from Beyond on this map against Stefano in the last
It was
round,
wild. So. The best games are always the ones where everything goes horribly wrong for both players. I tend to find it's just like it's crisis management at its absolute best.
And a lot of that came out of the counterattacks that Stefano did. So, I mean, Bjorn's going to have to have tightened up the bolts, I think, a bit here if he wants to prevent things from leaking a little bit too much against True.
Yeah. I mean, these guys have met each other almost on a monthly basis in just random online cups, and they've actually traded wins most of the time. Bjorn's taken a 2-0, True's taken a 2-0, back and forth, back and forth. It's actually hard to know right now who is in the better spot.
They're just both so good, and they are both, as you said, extremely common contenders in the online cups, these online tournaments. And that's kind of what I was saying earlier about people discussing, you know, can you actually practice versus these Koreans? Well, to be honest, sign up participation for things like the ESL America Online Cup for $10 is usually pretty weak. But if you wanted to play versus True, just
you probably find them in something like that, yeah.
It's like the old days. It was like, oh yeah, there was that like the Playhem Daily Cups for like $5 or $10. But then Hyun and like StarTel Curious were like playing in every single one. And it's like, well, if you wanted to play against good players, this is the way to do it. You probably won't beat them, but at least you can get some experience.
Indeed. To the southeast position, ladies and gentlemen, the Red Trunks playing Zerg. He is your current king with 2 wins under his belt. He is Storm's True versus his opponent to the southwest position in the Blue Trunks playing Terran. It is none other than Bjorn.
All right, so I want to know how Bjorn's going to approach this. I imagine that we'd see more euthermal, less innovation in terms of style. But then again, there it is, the very fast factory. So whether he gets that quick second barracks is going to tell us pretty much everything we need to know about how he wants to approach the start of this game. But with the timing of the factory, it could just be straight up quick Hellions into Banshee. That's another style that Bjorn has been using against Zerg that we've seen come back a little bit. This map, obviously pretty good. You have a very direct path via air to your opponent's base. But then at the same time, you also know as a Zerg player where to put your overlords if you want to be aware of what the Terran player is up to. So
that
not
is
100%.
very true.
Almost gets that Reaper caught.
Yep, Reaper almost blew himself up with a grenade, which would have been highly embarrassing. It's just like, well, I realize my life is now worthless. I must take it and end it with honor. No, that's not going to happen. But True already with the 6 lings on the board, a couple of queens up front. You know, he's not going to mess around. That is a quick starport right here from Bjorn, as well as the addition of Hellions.
Yeah, so this is kind of what I was getting that vibe towards. I was expecting him to get a tech lab with the barracks. Maybe this is like he's going to drop some Marines and do a Hellion run by. I'm not really sure. There's not a lot, it won't be a lot of Marines. Like the most he'll have is like 4 or 5 by the time a medevac is out. So maybe a pretty weak drop. Maybe the run by is where he's looking to get most of the damage done, but it is still going to be very tricky. It's not an easy thing to be able to do. I mean, we see the Overlord kind of watching. He could zip through the bottom area, but you know, you're taking chances at every step once you reach that level.
Yeah, it seems like it could be some kind of elevator play, but look at that quick armory. That, I think, is very revealing.
Hellbats. So it's going to be a big Hellbat push. Maybe just everything straight up the front then to try and break True early on. And you know what? I can't blame him, right? If we think about what True does, it's just Zerglings. Now, the Queens are still going to be good against the Hellbats, but the DPS output, if medevacs are healing, is also going to be an issue. So this spine crawler that True has just started makes a lot of sense. He's realizing, he's like, okay, well, I only build Zerglings. This guy's picking a build that's very good against just Zerglings. Let's see if a spine crawler is going to give me the defense that I need to deal with this attack.
And that should make sense. In the meantime, we do have those couple of Marines being added into the mix here, but that's the big Hellbat morph. And this is a strong push, but with 3 queens on the field, it could be a little bit tricky to make this work. The Lings, of course, don't want to get anywhere near that. The risk, I think, perhaps, is the 3rd being compromised. The Queens are going to try and make their way forward. The creep spread isn't quite there yet, but I mean, we could see that 3rd get denied. Even the Reaper being used to force the Queens back, which is actually a big deal considering their movement speed. That was a nice little move, and I think he's going to commit to trying to take this out, but he may lose his entire army if he does that. But he's realizing he backs off into the corner. He's looking to try and find an escape path to make sure he doesn't lose his whole army here.
Yep, caution is an extremely important thing. Patience as well. because, I mean, obviously those queens, the biggest focus is you take out the medevac, then the army has no way of retreating. There's no fancy micro, no healing. And I love that he's still building more Hellions. Like, I was thinking about this at Montreal, and obviously as a Terran player, you need to transition, but I like that Bjorn has looked at this and he's been like, dude, this guy just builds Zerglings.
Yeah, he's still building Zerglings, yeah.
I should just keep building Hellions. Hellions and Hellbats are pretty good against just Zerglings. And it's working out. He's getting great trades against these Lings.
Big Hellbat flank right here. Yeah, he's going to lose the Hellbats, but, you know, it's not like he didn't take a lot with him, and they're not expensive. They can be rebuilt relatively fast.
Yep.
Bear in mind that third base, yes, he didn't kill it, but it's on 300 HP. Like, that's always going to be at the back of True's mind now, that this is a weak point.
Yep, you can just push this over, basically.
You could just, like now, for instance.
Yep. He's going to come up here.
GG.
That's a really important pick-off. It's really important because he's got his third command center on the way. He's building it on location. I mean, the third hatchery starts, but he's buying himself time and is also delaying the larva, which I will mention for this game specifically because True just likes to build so many damn Lings that just 1 or 2 larva inject waves is actually significant enough damage to him. You're severely hemorrhaging his production capabilities by denying a base like that, even if he can just instantly rebuild it.
And consider just how carefully Bjorn played that out. Like, a lesser player, having seen that hatchery was on the verge of death, would have just stood there and continued to kill it. And in doing that, his entire army would have been wiped out. And it's like, okay, cool, you killed the base, but now you've opened yourself up to counterattack and potential loss. Bjorn realizes, no, this is not the hill I want to die on. I can get it later. I can dip back in a couple of times. I can finish it off. Transfuse energy is not readily available, especially if he's spreading a lot of creep and he's doing a lot of injections. It's expensive for him to do that. It's not very effective anyway. So I'll just dip back in there and I'll just get maximum value out of my army instead of just rushing ahead like an idiot and trading out my entire army for one base.
Yep. You can see he's got the stim now as well. So comes in, denies the 4th base, and keeping this presence on the map as Bjorn is so nice because typically you can't do this against True. True is actually insanely good at keeping units away from his base because he just always has so many Lings. But when you've got 5 Hellbats with medevac support, well, you're not getting a whole lot done there. And I love that he just still has all of these Hellions out of the map, keeping map control, denying the harass. This is something that I think you need to do if you're playing against True. Honestly, I'm surprised no one's even tried to go for like a Blue Flame Hellion opening against him because he does not build anything but Lings.
Eventually he would adapt to that, no doubt, but yeah, you're right. You know, that's something that could be exploited. We're already seeing that level of exploitation right here from Bjorn, and it helps that Bjorn is very familiar, having run into True on multiple occasions, so he seems to know what he's doing. And so far, so good here for Bjorn. He has a solid economy, 3 bases up. He's got tech on the way. You know, his Marines are now finally sort of in fighting position. They've got their combat shield and their stim is done as well. So he can finally start to apply real pressure and do real harassment that's not limited by the speed of the Hellbats. And he's starting to threaten that 4th base.
What I'd like to see is just keep the Hellbats spread out and just micro the Marines around. Don't let the Banelings get big hits on the Hellbats and just spread the Marines. And the Lings will be dealt with by the Hellbats pretty easily. He cleans everything up. There's still Marines alive. This is all he needed. And he gets right on top of the Queens. Transfuse for days, though.
Well, he also ends up losing a medevac thanks to a rogue Widow Mine that was actually triggered by the Overlords and was then actually pushed back, perhaps as a direct result of that. In the meantime, there is a little bit of harassment that's been cleaned up quite quickly. Another Widow Mine goes off, killing 3 SCVs and a mule. This is starting to get a little bit out of control here. We're seeing the Widow Mines doing more damage to the Terran than they are to the Zerg.
Yeah, it's kind of the benefit, right? You can kind of throw a few Lings away here and there if you can get those. I would still like to see more factories because I do think that is that's how you deal with this. Like everybody wants to just mass Marines. It's a very normal, natural thing, but True just does have always so many units. But Bjorn's played a really good game so far. His harass has been on point. These attacks have been great. Oh, those Hellbats. Banelings, I was worried if that Widow Mine was going to get a really big shot up, but Bjorn is managing to put pressure on, which we have not been able to see many people do against True so far.
No, and I'm seeing a big army supply advantage in favor of the Terran player. The Banelings do fend that off for the time being. Of course, it can be one big Widow Mine hit away from a complete turnaround like that one, for instance, and suddenly the Banelings realize, oh god, all our cover's gone, we need to leave now. A lot of Lings died to that. You know, it really can be just one Widow Mine out of nowhere, can be enough to turn that around, which makes this a very risky style from both sides.
Yeah, this is just one of those scenarios where you have to be extremely cautious, because obviously True seems to have a really good grip on how to abuse the Banelings, on how to abuse the Marine positioning, but you know, that's the thing about Widow Mines, there's always that chance. It's one of the reasons why they replaced siege tanks in Heart of the Swarm, just that ability to get those mega crazy shots off with their AoE damage, and these Banelings don't have much support, gonna split against them, and killing a little bit, but not too much that Bjorn can still stay out on the map if he wants.
That to me was a very, very large investment. Almost a case of like, I need to push Bjorn away and stop this so I can establish another base, but he committed a lot to that. And Marine production on Bjorn's side is looking great. You know, he's not short on money to build Marines, whereas that's a lot of gas that was just invested in throwing Banelings at that force. I don't know, the army supply count is starting to really heavily favor the Terran here.
He's moving up towards the north side. He's going to spread out. I mean, getting the mines burrowed is important. He's got to keep the Marauders up front. The Banelings do get some solid hits off, though. And that Ling count is only going to go right back up for True. Now, he wasn't able to saturate the 4th base just yet, but the Mutas are going to help with the mop-up duty.
And the nice thing about this is behind all of it, True's establishing a 5th. And while the Terran is committed to the north side, the 5th base is kind of going in down south. So True is okay with spending some of his units in order to drive this back here.
And those mines are going to get cleaned up on the right side at the same time. But it's just Marine mine. And ship weapons level 1 coming in, so we do have to assume that his follow-up at some point is going to be Liberators to help pick off any air units that come out into the fray.
So, all right, now this 5th base is under threat. The question is, can the Zerg player actually do anything about it? Looks like he's actually going to avoid that and maybe counterattack. Surprisingly enough, there's actually... Oh, there is one Widowmine in the back that does huge damage. You should have seen that one coming.
20 Zerglings picked off by that Widowmine. Great positioning there. There's a bunch of Banelings going to roll in from the right side. Marines are spreading beautifully.
Was disastrous for the Zerg. He lost all the Banelings with barely any reward whatsoever, and now things are looking a little grim with the 5th base now down. The counterattack, I mean, it turned into a disaster. A single Widowmine behind the supply depot gutted the link count, and now the Terran is posturing to threaten, of course, deny this 5th going up. That's never going up. And the 4th base is under threat as well. A big Widowmine hit again, as True loses most of his Lings at the flanking force here, and the Terran is just starting to build up such a large army. I'm not sure if it's even possible for True to get everything together and stop it.
Yep, I mean, he's picked off some of the reinforcements at the watchtower, but there's so many Marines with this Widowmine support on the north end.
Oh, big hit. The Overseer just went down.
Mines too.
Yeah, the Overseer just went down in the Mutalisk pack. That means they have no more ability to see those Widowmines, so they have to be super careful with where they go, and actually the Marines are moving to cut them off to make sure they can't get back to the rest of the army.
Yep, they show up, defend the 4th base. The Planetary Fortress is going to get another missile turret to help lock it down. Extremely important. And the Mutas catching the... Getting caught by the Marines on the left side.
Yeah, lost a couple there. That was not the kind of mistake that you want to make, because the Terran player is just edging ahead in terms of army supply. And I think once Bjorn gets everything together and just goes for it, the Baneling count isn't that high anymore. There's a decent number of mines. Does he have even any Overseers left? I see no Overseers. He actually has no Overseers.
There's no detection, no Overseers at all. Gets a couple hits off on these Marines, and the Baneley is going to step back through the field of Widowmines, taking some dangerous, deadly shots. And the Bio army is still alive. Double the army supply, TotalBiscuit. I don't think he can be stopped. This 4th base should get knocked down. There's not enough Banelings to deal with this Terran force anymore.
I think as soon as Bjorn gets his whole army together in one place, he's got this. Just as long as he doesn't eat a ton of Baneling hits. The Mutas are now in the fight, and they're doing some damage, but there's a lot of Marines on the ground. Those Mutas are going to get cut to pieces, and we're just seeing Zerg come in bit by bit by bit by bit, and that is not enough. He's bleeding out now. Quadruply army supply, GG. True falls, and Bjorn ascends to his rightful throne, and this is the kind of player that might not be dislodged for a while.
Yeah, Bjorn, I think we saw exactly what we needed, was Bjorn having a way with his control, with his build order, not only with the control and the mechanics, but the strategy choice to open with well, it must have been like 14, 15 Hellions, because he had the early Hellbat push, then he built another wave of Hellions, used that to push across, and then followed it up again with 5 more Hellions back home. And I think in the early game, when you're not dealing with a Zerg that has access to a tremendous number of those forces, just having enough to micro around mineral patches or choke points or your supply depots is so important. And then obviously his control was superb. The splits were great. He got some really nice Baneling snipes at the end of that game to help make it easier for himself to keep that position. And that just shows why Bjorn is recognized as one of the best.
Yeah, he is. And when it comes to online events, he's just unflappable. You think about players that are very much practiced in terms of LAN. Then you think about players who play online all the time. They're not worried about little bits of latency or delay or anything like that. They're not shaken by that kind of thing. Bjorn is a player that isn't shaken by that kind of thing at all. Which for a tournament like this, where he has to play on all servers, is a big advantage.
Yep, it's been a good setup now, as I think that Bjorn, like you just said, he's the kind of guy that can be very difficult to remove here. He's naturally very good at online tournaments. Obviously, he's just very good in general. And he's had some reasonable results as well for himself lately in GSL. Very good games. We talked about that series that Ryung had against him. Bjorn also played exceptionally well in that match.
He really did.
So a lot of players competing here that have actually been really making headlines outside of these online cups lately, which is awesome that we get to see a little bit more of these players, considering how limited the exposure is this year in terms of the Korean league, since there's so few matches being played this year.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it right now, your current King of the Hill is the potential GSL champion. Because right now, he is in the round of 4. He's going to be facing up against Dia in the round of 4, you know, having just beaten Ryung. Very close series from both Dia and Ryung with Bjorn. I mean, there was 3-2 on both sides, and it was incredibly competitive round of 8 in the GSL. And Bjorn is up against nothing but Protoss. It's entirely possible he could take the whole thing, which, if you think about it a year ago, when it's like, oh, Bjorn, yeah, he plays in Playhem Cups, you know, or Oli Moly or whatever. It's like, now he's threatening for GSL championship position. It's a big deal.
Yeah, I think that anyone that has to go up against him is going to be a little bit on edge, considering just how good he is, the momentum that he has, and where he can take it. Plus, he also just plays a very good, straight-up, solid game. We talk about his ability to adjust, and that's obviously very important. But for the most part, not everybody that you're going to play against, especially in this tournament, is going to be like True. That's going to just do absolutely off-the-walls, bonkers stuff. I guess the one exception I would say is Innovation, because I don't expect him to be crazy, but maybe that's the off-season kicking in. Maybe Innovation's just massing Cyclones on ladder all day. He's kind of been the oddball, I think, of today's games. He came in and did a lot of very weird stuff. That was still cool to watch, but I expect that Bjorn just plays very straight up, and he doesn't have to worry about anybody doing, I would say, anything remotely close to what True's been up to as far as that crazy, crazy style.
Just sorting out the next player momentarily, and we should be moving on in this tournament. We're just going to take a quick break in the process, and we will be right back. Bjorn is currently your king. One map in what could be a very long series for him. We'll find out after the break. Don't go anywhere. This challenger, of course, very popular player, was also in the previous ShoutCraft Kings and has butted heads with Bjorn on many occasions indeed. Arguably one of the best foreign Zerg of all time, it is Team Expert's Scarlet.
Oh, a bit of a different flavor then.
Indeed, a very different style of Zerg player.
Yeah, for sure. And ripping the, I guess on the NA server, Scarlet's in the Neeb fan club clan.
The Neeb fan club, of course, the most important fan club of all time. Everyone rallying around their foreign hero.
Yeah, I'm surprised that we're playing on America's. She's in
Canada right now, yeah. So the issue was, usually she is in Korea. They have a team house over there with no regret. But she's back in Canada for a month or so. And on the east coast of Canada, let's just say the ping to Korea, terrible. like, carrier pigeon level terrible. So, thankfully, the West Coast ping for East Coast Canada versus Korea is about even. So, we had to switch back over to that server and set it up, but everybody's happy with the pick now, so we're ready to go. We actually have a little bit of banter in the chat at the moment. Beyond wants Scarlet back in Korea, apparently, and is upset that she's not there because apparently Scarlet is a great practice partner.
Huh. Very respectful. Beyond is a pretty nice guy. I've never known him to even be trolly. Like, he's just a nice dude. Very very placid sort of temperament.
Very true, very true. All right, everyone's ready to rock and roll. I'm ready for a great match. It's going to be on Frozen Temple. We have Beyond taking on Scarlet, and as they have mentioned, they have played a great number of games together. This should be awesome.
Yep, this map I think lends itself to really good TVZ. Very small, set up for all the aggressive play. You can kind of do whatever you want on it. So very, very interested to see which way Beyond takes it, since he has also shown us some non-standard builds. He hasn't shown us. It's not like he's gone for that 2 racks opening every single game that we've seen. So, hoping that we get something really good here out of him. Frozen Temple.
I certainly hope so as well. Should hopefully be a phenomenal game. And here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Frozen Temple, to the northwest position in the Blue Trunks, playing Terran. He is your king of the hill. He is Beyond. Versus his opponent to the southeast position, claims to be a member of the Neeb fan club. Her actual team, new team in fact, Team Expert. In the pink trunks playing Zerg, it is Scarlet.
It's been cool to see that development of the foreigners that have been trying to make their way to Korea and practice a lot. Scarlet there with no regret, as you said. Neeb was staying there for a while as well. I know he was playing there before. I think it was right before I Am Shanghai and right after. He was talking about how he was staying there because, now that I think about it, I think he was actually saying, yeah, because there was a bit of extra space because Scarlet went back to Canada for a little bit.
Indeed, yes.
Around the time of Montreal. So, glad to see these guys getting their practice in over there, of course. It's definitely hard to play on the Korean server from the US. Even out here in Los Angeles, you still get like 180 ping. Not fun.
It's definitely doable from the West Coast, but East Coast is like, no, it's not. It's not possible.
It's bad.
Yeah, the other way around isn't too bad. I think it helps that South Korea has god-tier internet, so...
Yeah, you actually have good internet infrastructure in South Korea, whereas... Yeah. If you want fiber, it's like, well, good luck in the U.S.
Indeed, yeah. I remember Scarlet a while ago, it was possibly like a year or two ago, I was like, can I stream on 0.5 up? I'm like, probably not. No, actually.
No.
It's like, what internet do you have in Canada? And I think the answer was some. It's like, yeah, sounds about right.
Like, it's like when you compare old technology of like how people got water. You didn't just have plumbing in your house. You had to like go outside, like press the pump. Like that's how you get internet over there. It's just to press this pump. It's like, well, I got a little bit of internet.
Yeah, it's like, oh god, that's about half a gig. Just sitting there with a bucket. And there's a hole in it. It's like, oh god, it's packet lost. No, it is the worst. Yeah, but. That's alright, everything's sorted, everyone just getting about even ping now. You can never guarantee a truly fair, 100% fair fight, even on the same server, for God's sake. Someone's internet just might not be as good as someone else's. At the end of the day, you're playing an online tournament, you accept that, you don't complain, because that's just what it is. If you don't want to play online tournaments, don't play them. And these guys are both extremely experienced when it comes to online events.
Yes.
Scarlet's played a huge number of them. She has played very well in them, and Beyond is, of course, a god of them. And it's really cool to see that dynamic between the two of them, that they've been practice partners and that they know each other very well. Scarlet, of course, performed last month. Unfortunately, was not able to overcome Innovation, but put on a pretty strong showing, I thought.
Yep, there's nothing bad you can say about someone that loses to Innovation, right? I mean, the tier quality of the players that we've had competing here has been so big, It's hard to be upset if you lose in general. Obviously, you want the money. Obviously, you want to win. You want the prestige, the guts, the glory. But the competition is fierce, and there's a lot on the line. So everybody's putting their best foot forward. And it just makes sense that the games have all been so cutthroat and so intense. We really haven't had any boring games here. Something crazy has happened every single step of the way.
Yeah, whether it be a colossal screw-up or whether it be, something that was... That's a cheeky start there for Scarlet. Just... sort of asserting dominance and saying, all right, you know, I can kill something of yours whenever I feel like it.
Just getting a little bit of pressure put on there. That Reaper running around the main base, I think, just about gets cleaned up as well. So Scarlet going to double evolution chamber, third hatchery on the way. Everything coming up extremely standard for the Team Expert Zerg player. While Bjorn, well, he's back onto the super standard build, right? The 2 barracks opening. He's going to follow this up with the double engineering bay and the third command center, most likely, right after this finishes up. And maybe he goes straight into the siege tanks as well. Some Terrans have been mixing that up. We didn't see Thermal follow up with the tanks quite as strong, but Innovation did. And it looks like that's what Bjorn is going to do as well.
Yep. I love the fact that this is happening, because this usually means classic TBZ. The style that I most enjoy watching, that I most enjoy casting, about incredibly fast Zerg play versus positional Terran alongside Terran's trademark medevac harassment. Always fun to watch, always some action going on. Great chess game. Speaking of old school, Scarlet's creep spread. You know, it's nothing short of a beauty to watch, and certainly no exception right here. Although, however, Bjorn is trying to interrupt it. He is right in the middle of what could potentially be a very nasty position, however. Loses a bunch of Marines in the process, so we need to see some focus fire here from the Queens. Great use of the transfuse. One gets picked off, and medevac gets picked off in the process, and Bjorn gets driven away. Losing a medevac, losing half of his Marines, getting not a great deal done. Killing a Queen is great, but, you know, Scarlet has spare. Nice, solid defense.
Yep, and I think that that's one of the most important things, of course, is you can kind of bleed out those lings. Look at the worker count. Scarlet has gotten away with a 10-worker lead here on this setup. The third command center starting before the double engineering bay. Bjorn focusing on the economy here as we'll follow up to get the 1-1 upgrades and combat shield finishing. So he's getting all, you know, the good, great, grand, wonderful things that make Terran. But the real kicker here is going to be the follow-up that we have heard so much about. The 2 tanks with these medevacs, with these stim combat shield Marines. This is going to be where we see the pain come in. This is where Scarlet either destroys this and takes a monstrous lead, or Bjorn possibly wins the game off the damage he could do.
Indeed, and the worst part of this is that Scarlet knew what was coming. She was trying to break down those rocks to allow her to get a flanking position. She wasn't able to do it before it hit. So that massively limits the attack angles of Scarlet. Most of the Marines get crushed in the process, but there are still 2 tanks there, and
the
they're
Banelings are all gone.
untouched.
All of the Banelings are killed as well. Baneling speed is not yet ready, so more Lings need to come out, but these Marines can fight with impunity. And like you said, with that position, the possibility is always there to just move the tanks to the left side of those rocks where the Lings that they're running tremendous distance to get there.
Oh, it was a real shame she wasn't able to kill off those rocks beforehand, because that would have given her more options in terms of eliminating this force. She splits off just to try and take the tanks out. Gets one, is in touch with the other as well. Big stim forward by the remains, but with the medevacs down, Scarlet is able to push this back.
Pretty solid hold there still.
A very solid hold. She actually has double the army supply now.
I was going to say, not losing enough drones to really make it that bad, and she's just going to crank out more Queens. This looks pretty good. Bjorn's getting the armory now as the 1-1 comes close to finishing. Wow, that fight actually took a while, and he floats out the third command center.
And you got to actually admire the fact that Scarlet was able to take that fight without the rocks being down, with limited angles of attack, with great positioning from the opponent's tanks, and yet not take too much economic damage, not bleed off her entire army multiple times. Now, it ended up really, really excellent, honestly, for Scarlet. I think she did a fantastic job. Her creep spread continues to be very aggressive towards the Terran player, and that timing window is now gone. You know, we've seen that kind of push do tremendous damage. Innovation has done it many times in this tournament. It's very popular because it's hard to deal with, but Scarlet seems well practiced against it and was able to stay calm and hold it together.
These drops going to move towards the left side. Wants to put pressure on this 4th hatchery, which is already done. Can Bjorn knock it down? There's quite a few Banelings. Of course, the Queens will always be looking for those shots off on the medevac. And I like this, actually. Scarlet got this 4th secured so early on, and there's the counterattack. coming in. Only 2 Marines. I mean, I think there's a tank on the bottom of the main cliff, but certainly
yeah,
could have tried to get something done.
Yeah, she could have definitely committed there and done a little bit more damage. You know, even if the tank was in play, it would have probably ended up shelling the worker line. I think she was more worried that perhaps there were more units than she'd initially expected to the south, threatening her 4th base, so maybe she didn't want to overcommit too much to that. But one way or the other, God, this creep spread is ridiculous. Like, 9 minutes into the game, the creep spread is almost in the northeast corner of the map at this point. The amount of vision, the amount of mobility that Scarlet's going to have as a result here. Anytime Beyond moves out, he's at risk of being flanked from about 3 different sides now.
Good focus fire so far in the Banelings, but the last few
just takes
not
one.
so good. And yeah, it just takes one, and the Lings are going to be able to clean up all of these Marines, backing himself into a corner, but that is not going to be enough. Beyond 2-2 coming in. 2-2 is done for Scarlet. +1 ship weapons, but Liberators are not a factor yet in this game.
Yeah, I don't know if she has a large enough army to really make a difference here, considering even though she has an upgrade lead, you know, just you have enough to fully break and entrench Terran. I mean, the Marine count is pretty high, but the tank count isn't. You know, we'll see what she can do. I mean, what I would do is wait for Beyond to push out on the creep, considering half the map is creep, and then just have your way. And that's exactly what's happening. We've got an attempted attack here from Scarlet, which didn't really work too well, but she was able to surround the push onto the creep, and Mutalisks made their way into the main base and killed 10 workers in the process.
Yeah, lack of turrets definitely hurting there. And you know what, another important thing to keep in mind is that Bjorn actually never got +1 vehicle weapons, so his siege tanks don't even one-shot the Zerglings at this point.
Very
and that
important.
means that Scarlet can soak up a lot of damage every time that she pokes. If she chooses to commit, she's not taking those walloping volleys that knock out waves of Lings at a time.
Yeah, that's true. Only a couple of tanks, a lot of Marines, and huge creep spread. I am not too keen on this push, I gotta admit here from Beyond. That seems unnecessarily risky, and if positioning is in favor of Scarlet, which it should be.
Yes. Scarlet's Ling Bane could swallow this army whole. I mean, the forces in the center, it looks like she's getting ready to go for a big counterattack. Kind of hoping that Bjorn commits to this, but I think he's realizing what you were saying. He's like, you know what? I think I'm stepping a little bit too, the water's not so shallow over here. A little bit deep. Clipping a few of those mutas, though.
Yeah, they're sort of flying right into the force before quickly pulling back here, but Scarlet, oh god, look at the huge enveloping Ling run by. That's not so much of a Ling run by as the Ling tsunami hitting the 3rd and the natural. Plenty of Banelings in the mix, not quite enough defense to stop it, and now that mineral line is at a huge threat. In the meantime, a counterattack envelops the majority of Beyond's army as it's pulling back, and the mineral line being threatened here.
Absolutely gets shut down trying to move across map. And you were talking about it earlier. It's that creep spread. Even if he kills the tumors, it does still take a little bit of time for the creep to completely recede, and then you have to scan again and again and again because Scarlet does not stop planting those down. So you have an incredibly long distance to go, and because of that, I mean, Scarlet's in a dominating position. The only thing that I think does heavily favor Beyond, if he can hang in there, his 3-3 is on the way. The infestation pit is not even halfway done, which means 3-3 for Scarlet is at least 3 or 4 minutes from being done right now, assuming that she heads straight for it. So that's going to be Beyond's advantage. She's going to have the Heart of the Swarm style 3-3 bio advantage, and it is pretty significant.
It is. Yep, it definitely is, and it's taken a while for Scarlet's tech to get moving. Scarlet right now has a huge army supply advantage that I think she needs to take advantage of now. Like, now is the time to crush the Terran before he is really able to get a fully maxed out army with those kind of upgrades. You're maxed out, you're ready to go. Get some good fights, get those damn Widow Mines out of the way, which she's doing a great job of cleaning up, and then attack from all sides and envelop your opponent's army before it gets too dangerous. That's exactly what's happening right now. Banelings take control of the main mineral line. A second wave of Zerglings head towards the 3rd and 4th base with Mutalisk support around the back here as well. Reinforcements being surrounded and cut off. Eventual cleanup, but economic damage being done. The main bulk of the Zerg force now attempting to attack the 4th, but driven away. A great Baneling detonation. But is it going to be enough? Can Scarlet finish off Beyond before that upgrade count becomes critical? Down goes the planetary.
I think she's managed to do it. I mean, Beyond's economy has been brought to tatters, and without the 4th base, without the SCVs, What is he supposed to do to try and recover
Oh,
from
a
this?
huge
More of
hit!
the banelings detonating on those workers.
All right, Beyond has 19 workers left, and the Zerg has 75. You remember this scenario from last time? This game could go on a while.
Yeah, that's true. It's very important to keep in mind. It's very true. The 3-3 is going to be huge, and Beyond has the army supply. But I think that Scarlet's creep spread should give her enough leverage in terms of where she can take a fight.
She could afford to lose a base, you know, and just position properly for a real attack and not get too desperate. Nice shutdown again of the harassment. There's a base going down. It's okay. You know, she's got 2 fully operational mining bases to the south. She can afford to lose that. Now she knows where that army is. That means she immediately sends her lings into a position to try and flank it. Unfortunately, the army is already back together. Thankfully, that Widow Mine wasn't ready to trigger. That would have been devastating. Look at that muta count, though. It's starting to get crazy.
Yeah, I mean, this is just one of the ways you help abuse the fact that the Terran player is in such a scrappy setup. Like, you get this many mutas, you come in, you knock down
all
the base.
The mules
all these
down.
mules. That represents pretty much all of Bjorn's economy. He's got 25 SCVs. He's dropped 700 minerals a minute income right there just from those mules dying.
Now taking control of the main ramp again, so that she's trying to get that third base, knowing that that third base is, you know, where all the mining is happening. Needs to commit, do some real damage, cut off some reinforcements, and more to the point, if she can keep mining, she can afford to keep running these away. Borrowed Banelings in play, unfortunately right in front of the Terran army. Beyond did notice. It was an interesting gambit, but he did notice. Now moving in again. 4th base under threat. Banelings trying to crash down on top of the Marine Force. They get connections.
Wow.
They get connections. The mineral line is wiped out.
And the Widow Mine shot as well helped clean up so many of those Marines at the same time. Scarlet Ling inside that third. The command center is down.
Third is under threat here. This could be it.
So a couple Liberators are going to come out. Liberators are good, TB, but are they good enough to win this game for Bjorn? To be perfectly honest, I mean, if Bjorn actually gets 4 Liberators to shoot at all these mutas, he'll probably kill them all. So
yeah, you do want to watch out for that. You know, there's still a pretty incredibly well upgraded Terran army.
If there's one unit you should not underestimate in this game because of how powerful it is the Liberator.
Yeah, although at this
absolutely cannot engage into them.
If he continues to use Widow Mines in this way, he's going to blow up the rest of his own army, so he needs to watch out for that. Obviously, that ball of that's what you were saying. That ball of Mutalisks is very vulnerable. That represents a lot of supply, a lot of gas investment. So, yeah, it is still totally possible for Bjorn to come back into this. He still has a sizable army. However, Scarlet wants to end it right here, right now. The Banelings overwhelm the remaining Marines on the ground. The medevacs are knocked out of the sky. The Mutalisks jump on top of the remaining Liberators, and that is it. GG. Scarlet is your new Queen of the Hill.
It's just non-stop. That crown is just going all over. All of these games have been so good, by the way. What a treat this day has been as far as the StarCraft goes. I mean, Bjorn had the phenomenal way, I think, of really picking a strategy to shut down True. Comes up against a completely different flavor of Zerg, and Scarlet says, I know how to handle you. This is fine. I can do this. And really sick game by Scarlet. I think the way that she handled the early aggression is so important. So many Zerg players, just think about it, like, she could have made another 8 larva worth of lings to try and stop the first push, and then she overkills, you know, and she doesn't have the economy behind it for that to be worth it anymore because she's not ahead 10 drones. So stuff like that is just such a big deal. And I have to say, I'm just continuously impressed by the way that everybody is kind of reacting and preparing and switching things up against everybody else that's playing here. It's so good.
Seeing the crown changing hands over and over again. Less streaky play this time around. People sort of bringing their A-game prepared.
Yes.
I'm intrigued to see, you know, who, if anybody, will actually get the real streak. Because weirdly enough, the longest streak today has, again, still been Innovation. And that's only counting his games today.
Yeah, it's been really awesome. I don't know how anybody's supposed to get a streak like that going again, to be perfectly honest. Like, as far as all of that sort of stuff goes, like, if everybody is able to play at such a high level, like, how are you supposed to get a streak? And the funny thing is, it's not like Innovation got his streak because we put him up against a bunch of, you know, non-Korean players. Like, he beat so many good players to get that streak that he was able to build off of earlier on. And it's really showing just the level of competition that the players are bringing to this. They're taking this tournament very seriously.
Oh yeah, you know, there's a lot of money on the line. I think it's prestige, it's a big audience as well, and people, I think, again, it is the sort of the ultimate challenge to you as a player. Can you handle literally anything with no prep?
Being able to come into the Thunderdome like that.
It really is that, isn't it?
Go ham. Yeah.
It's gladiatorial
It's
contest.
It's a different sort of animal than a normal, you know, bracket or tournament that you have time to prepare for, etc., etc.
It is true, and not every player can handle that. And it also demonstrates, interestingly, qualities that not every player gets to show off on a regular basis. There are some players that are great at prep, and then if the only leagues they're playing in are prep-heavy leagues, you know, like, say, Pro League, where you know who your opponent is a week in advance, then you see, you know, very different qualities coming out of certain players.